Welcome back into Uncaged Sports Talk here for episode 14. You guys might wonder why I'm wearing a scarf today and a World Series hat from 2022. I am wearing this today because at the time I'm recording this, Wednesday evening, it is a 1-year anniversary. Granted, the Phillies lost last year, but it is a 1-year anniversary since I was at Game 3 of the World Series, which despite them losing the series, going to Game 3 of the World Series was a once-in-a-lifetime memory. Once in a lifetime, not once in a lifetime because they could have went back this year and I could have maybe won, who knows. But getting to go to the World Series was a memory I will never forget. I bought a hat for the World Series 2022. Just be like, yeah, I was at the World Series. This scarf, I don't know if the green screen, which I'm getting rid of the green screen, but if the green screen let me shows you, I will. It says World Series on it, 2022, presented by Capital One. I know the green screen glitching. I plan on getting rid of the green screen eventually and getting just a background. But yeah, I was at the 2022 World Series a year ago when the Phillies hit 5 home runs and took a 2-1 series lead against, albeit a historic team, a great team, the Houston Astros. So they were expected to lose. They went up 2-1. I left the building that night thinking they were going to win the World Series. They didn't. It was still a fun ride. It was easy to get over, though, because they weren't expected to get as far as they did. And they still got up 2 games on a team that might eventually go down as a dynasty, the Houston Astros. But I just wanted to wear those. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. I just wanted to wear those, though, to kick off the show and just talk about how last year, a year ago, at the time I'm recording this, I was at Game 3 of the World Series, which is a memory I'll never forget. Bryce Harper with the home run to start the game. Then he talks to Alec Boehm, tells Alec something you couldn't tell at the moment that he was talking to Alec. But then he told Alec something, and Alec goes up there, hits a home run. And the floodgates were open from there. I remember seeing a Kyle Schwarber home run fly like directly at me. I had standing room seats in center, like dead center. Kyle Schwarber hit a bomb, dead center. It looked like the ball was coming right at me. I was like, oh shit, that ball is coming right towards me. It was a really fun game, though. Something I'll never forget the rest of my life, getting to go to the World Series. But besides that, it is Dallas week. Eagles versus the Dallas Cowboys. Also, I'm going to pivot back for one more second. When I went to the World Series last year, I remembered yesterday that one of the other core memories that I have from that is it got rained out on Halloween. The game was supposed to take place on Halloween, which was the 14-year anniversary since the 08 World Series parade, which I got to go to, but Game 3 this last year was supposed to take place on Halloween, but got rained out. But then one of my family friends took me up to the Hall of Fame club level. We actually saw John Middleton as he was walking to his office, Phillies owner John Middleton. And he was nice enough to take a picture with both of us, which He did not have to do. He went out of his way and was willing to take a picture with both of us, which is something that was really cool. Getting to take a picture with the Phillies owner at the World Series that got rained out, and then you get to go to the World Series again the next night. So you got double, like that scarf they handed out at the World Series. I got two of them because they handed two out, and there was rain delay the game was postponed the first day. But yeah, it was some memories I'll never forget. Hopefully, I can make more memories like that next year, which I'm planning on getting a season ticket package, so that'll make it easier. But that's for a topic down the line. Once I start to get over the Phillies lost this year in the playoffs, but it is Dallas week. We are coming for the Dallas Cowboys. As you can see, I'm wearing this Eagles hoodie specifically because it is Dallas week. That this game is probably the Eagles' biggest game all year. It's going to be bigger than the second one. The second one might have more implications later on. But this one, in theory, is bigger than in any game we're going to play all year in the regular season. If the Eagles beat the Cowboys this Sunday at 4:25 at Lincoln Financial Field, Broad Patterson, you take a 2.5 game lead in the division, in the NFC East. If you can take a 2.5 game lead in the NFC East, you basically put the Cowboys in your rear view mirror and you can focus on the Niners and Lions, which you don't play the Lions, but I'm not really worried about them. Then you just focus on the Niners, who you already got a 2 game lead on. If you beat them when you play them, you put them in your rear view mirror, and you all but just about wrap up the number 1 seed when it comes time. You put yourself in a really good position if you beat the Cowboys, going up 2.5 games over the Dallas Cowboys, if you can pull it off. The problem is pulling it off. Dallas is a lot better than people give them credit for. I hate to say it as an Eagles fan, but Dak's a top 10 QB, fringe top 10, around 8 to 10 range. But that's also by default almost because there's not many great QBs. But he's still really good QB. He not really good, but he's still a good QB. They got CeeDee Lamb, who's amazing right now. CeeDee Lamb, top 6, top 7 receiver right now in all of football. You got Brandon Cooks. He hasn't really done much yet as a Cowboy, but he still has the talent. He's a good slot guy, and Eagles have been struggling with the slot. They got Michael Gallup. Sorry about the green screen glitching. I can tell it is right now, but that's off topic. But they got Michael Gallup in the slot who could potentially eat the Eagles alive. You got Tony Pollard. I don't see the Cowboys really getting a run game going in this one. But the Cowboys still got some weapons. Jake Ferguson, Eagles struggle mightily with tight ends. And Jake Ferguson, rookie, has been really good so far to start this year out there in Dallas. And then on defense, you lost Trayvon Diggs this year, but Deron Bland just had a pick 6 this past week against the Rams. And they still got Stephon Gilmore. They're looking good out there in the heart of Texas, where the World Series could go back to for a game 6 or whatever, but they're looking good there in Dallas. And that pains me to say. The Eagles, best team in football, though, right now. With the Eagles being the best team in football, it's a plus to have them being the best team in football right now. It actually eases the pain from the Phillies loss, but you need this Dallas win, and you can take a 2.5 game lead, and you control your own fate. If you control your own fate heading into this tough stretch after the bye, you got the Chiefs, you got the Bills, you got the Niners, you got the Cowboys again, and then you got the Seahawks. If you can beat the Cowboys and get that 2.5 game lead, you give yourself the cushion you need. If you lose, though, you're only a half game up. And you have a bye next week with the Cowboys playing the New York Giants next week. So then the Cowboys would beat the Giants most likely, and they'd control the division. They'd be in first place in the division. A loss changes the entire division like that. Compared to a win, you step on the throat of the Cowboys and you take a commanding lead, which I don't know if they can get back up from. That would be the knockout punch if you win this Sunday against the Cowboys. It would be the knockout punch, putting them on the canvas, which they might not get up from. They still would make the playoffs, but they won't get up in the division race from if you beat them on Sunday. I would lock that in right now. If the Eagles win Sunday, this division is over. No matter what happens in the Eagles' next 5-6 games, which I'll get to that right now too. In these next 5 to 6 games for the Eagles, I see the Eagles 3-3 at worst. The way I look at it, 3-3 at worst, maybe 4-2. 4-2 would be great. If you go 4-2, Philly's ecstatic getting through the stretch 4-2. But the way I look at the stretch, you got the Cowboys twice. You probably split with the Cowboys. Sweeping the Cowboys would be a lot to ask for, but you split with the Cowboys. Okay, so that's 1-1 in this 6-game stretch. Then you got the Chiefs and Niners. I've been saying it all year long, and I still see it. The Niners are going to want this game more than the Eagles. Granted, it's in Philly, but the Niners are going to want it more than the Eagles in the regular season. And the Niners are going to get revenge. But I'm going to say the reverse with the Eagles versus the Chiefs. The Eagles are going to want revenge against the Kansas City Chiefs, and they're going to go get their revenge out in Arrowhead. So the Eagles split the Chiefs and Niners games, so you're at 2-2. Then you got the Bills at home. The Bills are looking iffy right now. Josh Allen has a shoulder injury right now, was reported today on Wednesday. The Bills are looking iffy. I think they're a beatable team. If Eagles can beat them, they get to 3-2 in that stretch, and then you can play the Seahawks, which that could be a letdown game after that stretch. But the Seahawks are still a tough team. If you can beat the Seahawks and go 4-2 on this stretch, that's outstanding. Beating the Seahawks and doing the rest of what I laid out. 4-2 over the stretch with playing the Cowboys twice, the Niners, Chiefs, Bills, and Seahawks. That would be outstanding. Give me 1 second. Sorry. Even if you go 3-3, that would be great. You get to that puts you in position to go 14 or 13-4 this year. I'm pretty sure any Eagles fan would take 13-4 right now. The Eagles have looked shaky so far this year. Jalen Hurts has a bone bruise, which I think's nothing. He's literally been saying it's nothing, and he's been playing with it like all year, it seems like, or at least the last month and a half. But the Eagles are very talented right now. The offense, A.J. Brown's on a historic tear. Terrell Owens, 04 type of tear. I'm getting to witness it now. Kids my age are getting to witness this A.J. tear. We didn't get to witness the T.O. 04 tear that he was on. We're getting to witness this A.J. tear, which he's on pace for historic year as an Eagle. He just broke a record for 6 straight 100-yard games. 125-yard games. 6 straight 125-yard games A.J. Brown has had. It passed Calvin Johnson's record, I believe, which Calvin set probably 10. I'm not sure exactly how long ago, but probably like 10 years ago. A record that Calvin Johnson set like 9 years ago. A.J. Brown just beat this year. And he has a chance against the Cowboys to get it to 7. The keys for the Eagles in this game, you're going to want to run the ball early and often. Let your own linemen set a tone against the Cowboys who want to get home with their pass rush. No turnovers. You cannot have a turnover like you did last week against Washington. You're not going to survive if you have turnovers this week. But you need your O-line to set a tone early, run the ball, set a tone, run it right at Micah Parsons. He struggled last year in that first game when we were running the ball towards him. He was struggling until Lane Johnson went out. Lane Johnson had him on clamps, as my generation likes to say. That's the word of the day that my generation likes to say. Clamps. Lane Johnson had him shut down. And then Lane Johnson got hurt and Micah started to turn up a little bit. He started to get rolling a little last year. But Eagles were running straight at Micah Parsons. And because of how aggressive he is trying to get off the ball quick to get after the quarterback, it hurts him in his run defense to a degree. The Eagles need to run early and often, let your O-line set a tone, and you won't lose this game. The Cowboys will fold like they did against the Niners. You got to be the more physical team in this game, out physical the Cowboys, and do not turn the ball over. And you will be able to win this game. Howard Eskin, that's one thing I want to get to. Howard Eskin, he guaranteed an Eagles win this week on WIP. He said the Eagles get 2 interceptions. Now, I think that's asking for a lot. Just like Jack Fritz is asking for a lot. Jack Fritz of WIP, he said Eagles win by 10 or more. I'd be shocked if we win by 10 or more. I'd be ecstatic. But beating the Cowboys by 10 or more, my jaw would drop. This would be my reaction. For the people watching on YouTube, you can see right now, this would be my reaction. Yeah, I'd be in complete shock if you go up against the Cowboys and you beat them by 10 or more. That would be a beat down. And if that happens, I'll come on this episode next week and say the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl. If the Eagles have that much of a convincing win against the Cowboys. It's going to be an exciting week as we finish up Dallas week. I do want to get to the other Arlington team, the other Dallas team. It's in the World, at the time I'm recording this, the World Series is in the bottom of the 7th. The Texas Rangers lead 1-0 at bat. After this half inning, the Rangers are going to be 6 outs away from winning the World Series in 5 games. That'll make me feel a bit more confident. I texted a friend before coming on here because through 5 innings, the Rangers were getting no hit. Now their bats have come alive as they see a chance to go and win the World Series, and they lead 1-0. But we'll see what happens with that tomorrow morning. If the Diamondbacks come back and win this game, there will be a Game 6 in Texas Friday night, and if necessary, a Game 7 in Texas Saturday night. That would be awesome if it would have been the Phillies. Phillies versus Rangers, Game 6, Game 7. And then you get Eagles Dallas the next night. That would have been the ultimate Dallas week. But congrats to the Texas Rangers if they're able to hold off on this. And congrats to the Diamondbacks on ultimately being the better team against the Phillies. Phillies choked, but congrats to the Diamondbacks for winning the NLCS. And congrats to the Rangers if this holds. The Rangers are 6 outs away from winning the World Series in 2023. Who would have thought that before the playoffs started? But it's about to happen, potentially. I will get to some other news, though. Or not news, but I want before... Yeah, there's some news to touch on before I get into my lists for the week. I want to touch on someone leaving. Have you guys ever had someone leave? What emotions has it brought out of you? I know this brought a lot of emotions out of people and excitement out of people. The Beard to L.A. James Harden has officially been traded from Philadelphia. Daryl Morey decided to do something and get James Harden out of Philadelphia because he saw Tyrese Maxey was having a good start to the season. And if you bring back James Harden, it would have stunted Tyrese Maxey's growth potentially as a player this year. Tyrese Maxey, you want to see what you actually have in Tyrese Maxey. And these next 3 months are a trial period. Like, I don't even care really what they got back. I wish they would have gotten Bones back for James Harden. But I'm happy James Harden's gone because it lets Tyrese Maxey truly develop. And you can see what you have in Tyrese. It brings a little more excitement back to me for the Sixers because I want to see what Tyrese has and if he can develop into that second star the Sixers have desperately needed that can take those game-winning type shots, that can take those shots at the end because that's the biggest problem with Embiid. Embiid's a center unless you're Jokic, you're not taking those game-winning shots, especially in today's game of basketball. You need Maxey to develop into that guy who can go rise up when the moment's brightest and hit the shots when it matters most and close a game for you. He needs to be your closer. Embiid can be your face, but Maxey needs to grow into your closer by the end of the season if you want any shot of winning a championship. Still would be hard, but he needs to grow into your closer if you want any shot of winning a title this year. I want to let you all know to head over and visit my friend Dan the Man Stanley at Sheridan Nissan, where they will hook you up with a new car. Just let them know Luke Sarankin on Cage Sports Talk sent you. Now we are going to get into Luke's list. We're going to start with the best sports rivalry since it is Dallas week. Luke's list, the best sports rivalries. I have them all up on the screen and I'm going to run through these because tired after work. Going to try to get through all these lists and then my best bets for the week. I'm going to give my reasoning for each, but keep it brief. My honorable mention is the Flyers versus the Penguins. When I was growing up, the Flyers versus the Penguins, those games were highly intense, especially in the playoffs. The Claude Giroux shift in Game 6 against the Penguins at the Wells Fargo Center to beat the Penguins in a series after they had battles that year. The coaches, Dan Bylsma and Peter Laviolette, were getting in fights. Sidney Crosby, who never gets in fights, he was just an instigator, was getting in fights. He was with Claude Giroux. Claude Giroux leveled Sidney Crosby and then scored a goal on an amazing shift. And the Flyers went on to win that series against the Penguins, but they just had battles, those two teams, when I was growing up in the 2010s to 2015s. Coming in at number 5, because the Ravens are a newer team, which is the reason this is at 5. It hasn't had the time to build up to the level of these other matchups. I got the Steelers versus Ravens. It's highly intense, but it doesn't have as much of the history that these other matchups ahead of it has. But Steelers versus Ravens games, when those two teams get at it, it's highly physical, highly intense, and you know it's going to be a war when those two teams get after it. Coming in at number 4, same thing, college-wise, but same thing. These two schools hate each other. Ohio State and Michigan, the last few years have really shown the magnificence of this matchup. But when Ohio State and Michigan get together, these two schools despise each other. And they want to beat each other bad. And it's probably the biggest rivalry in college football right now. And it's a 114-year-old rivalry. Coming in at number 3, Dallas week, Eagles versus Cowboys. These two teams have a history. Part of it's the fan bases. The fan bases despise each other. Philly fans hate the Cowboys. They hate Dallas fans because of how much Philly fans have been tormented by Cowboys fans from Cowboys fans in the area, which are fake Cowboys fans to a degree. Some are Cowboys fans because of their parents, which I'm fine with. But the Cowboys fans in this area, unless your parent's not a Cowboys fan, unless your parent is a Cowboys fan, then you have a reason. But if they're not a Cowboys fan, you have no reason to be a Cowboys fan in this area. Most Cowboys fans in this area are usually Cowboys fans just to be the opposite of Eagles fans. And they just have rubbed everything in the Eagles' face, from rings until the Eagles got a Super Bowl ring. They used to say that's why the Eagles got no rings. You can't talk unless you get a ring. Then the Eagles got a ring, and then they try to shove 5 rings in your face. But most Cowboys fans haven't even seen a Super Bowl victory in their lifetime. But that's besides the point. When these two teams get together, there's wars. There's a lot of history between these two teams. I remember Malcolm Jenkins and Des Bryant getting into it before a game. Brandon Boykin getting a pick to send the Eagles to the playoffs in Chip Kelly's first year. I've heard stories of Wilbert Montgomery's big run against the Cowboys to send the Eagles to the Super Bowl. The stopping the Cowboys 4 times near the end zone. I believe that's in the same game as the Wilbert Montgomery game. There's a lot of history and a lot of bad blood in these Eagles Cowboys games. And this one, when these two teams are good, it's even more amplified, the animosity between these two teams. Coming in at number 2 is the Chicago Bears and Green Bay Packers. This one is at number 2 strictly because it might not have the same intensity, but it has historicness. The longest rivalry in all of sports, in all of pro sports. The longest standing rivalry in all of pro sports. The most historic rivalry besides for my number 1. The Bears versus the Packers. These fan bases hate each other, and teams honestly hate each other. The Bears Packers, because of how historic it is, comes in at number 2. And then at number 1, there's no explanation needed for this. The bad blood. The cities hate each other, just despise each other to begin with a passion. Yankees, Red Sox. These two teams, historic in every measure of the word, great in every measure of the word. When these two teams get together, it is must-watch sports television, especially when they're good. Everything's amplified tenfold. Everything's amplified when these two teams get together. Yankees Red Sox is the number 1 rivalry in all of sports. Now, as we get close to the end of the show, as it gets close to my bedtime, but coming in for Luke's list on my NFL power rankings, I'm gonna run through all these, not really give full reasons for all of them, but run through them as quick as I can, and then go to my best bets, which I'll run through. Trending up, as you can see, the Saints, they move up 7 spots after their win against the Colts. The Saints are looking good, and there's a lot of teams that dropped this week. The Broncos move up 7 spots to 19 after their win against the Kansas City Chiefs. They look fairly impressive this week, and they're starting to get rolling. And then you get the Vikings. They dropped because they lost Kirk Cousins, but I didn't drop them too far because they just traded for Josh Dobbs, who has looked solid. Coming in at number 24, I got the Rams. They dropped just because there was a lot of shuffling in that lower range of teams. And they had a bad loss to the Cowboys this week, and Stafford has a UCL injury in his thumb. So the Rams dropped 9 spots to 24. Coming in at number 10 is the Detroit Lions. There's not much to say at that spot right now. A lot of these teams, there's not much to say right now. After next week, there will be as 8 of my top 11 teams play each other. So we will be discussing all those matchups. You got the Bills, Bengals, Eagles, Cowboys, Seahawks, Ravens, Chiefs, Dolphins. But coming in at number 9, you got the Seahawks. I was going to have them at 11 originally, but they move up because of the Leonard Williams trade. Adding Leonard Williams gives that team players at every level. Gives them players that can make a difference on every level. The Seahawks come in at number 9. Coming in at number 8 is the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence. Coming in at number 7 is the Niners. They have been skidding. They've lost 3 in a row. Brock Purdy looks human finally. The Niners drop 4 spots to 7 as Brock Purdy finally looks human. And the Niners are struggling currently. The Bengals at number 6, they are starting to get rolling. They're starting to get on a roll and headed to where they should be. The Bengals move up 5 spots after a convincing win against the San Francisco 49ers. The Dolphins come in at number 5. The Ravens come in at number 4. The reason I don't have them higher is because it seems like they do this every year in the beginning of the year. Then they have a letdown game that they shouldn't have. Probably lose this week, but it wouldn't be that much of a letdown game. But they always seem to have a letdown game around this point of the year. And then Lamar winds up getting hurt. So being careful with them, treading with caution with the Baltimore Ravens. Chiefs coming at number 3. Looked iffy this week against the Broncos, but I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. Just because it's Patrick Mahomes, he'll get it right. He'll right the ship. Coming in at number 2 is the Dallas Cowboys. This I feel like is more or less because I'm nervous about them. Nervous about this matchup. I think the Eagles win. I think the Eagles win 31-27. A shootout. Jalen Hurts outduels Dak Prescott. But Eagles beat the I think the Eagles beat the Cowboys this week. But the Cowboys are still a really good team. I think that's why I got them at number 2, because I'm nervous about the Cowboys in the long run this year. Cowboys got a better team than people give them credit for. People just like to hate on the Cowboys because it's the Cowboys and their fan base. And then number 1, the Eagles. There's really no debate to this right now. The Eagles are clearly the best team in all of football right now, having only one loss to the Jets, which they tried to sleepwalk through, but that didn't really work out. They got caught in a game they thought was a cakewalk. Now, for my best bets of the week as we wrap up episode 14, Rivalry Week, and a Rivalry Dallas Week episode of Uncaged Sports Talk. I got the Titans this week over the Steelers on Thursday Night Football, plus 3.5. Will Levis looked really good, and Will Levis getting his second start. It's a short week, but I think the Titans go out there and beat the Steelers. The Steelers have been iffy so far this year. I think Will Levis looks good again this week. He has the arm talent, and he goes out and helps the Titans get the job done on Thursday Night Football tonight. Or tomorrow night tonight as it comes out. Then I got the Vikings at 4.5. Despite them having Jaron Hall, the Falcons just added a QB too. The Vikings still get Madison, who's okay, he's okay. They still got Hawkinson, who's a really good top tight end. You got Jordan Addison, who's turning into a really good receiver. Going to be a great number 2 receiver once Jefferson comes back. The Vikings go out and beat the Falcons plus 4.5. They cover the 4.5 at least. The Seahawks, plus 5.5 against the Ravens. I could see the Seahawks winning this game. I think 5.5 is a hefty line for this game. Give me the Seahawks there all day long, plus 5.5. It's a bit hefty for my liking in this spot. Then I got the Buccaneers plus 2.5. The Buccaneers are playing the Texans. The Texans have looked good this year, but they still are the Texans, and they're about a year and a half away, year or two away from getting to the point where they can be a good team and beat teams like the Bucks convincingly. But the I like the Bucks plus 2.5. I like the Bucks to win this game outright against the Texans. Then the Bengals minus 2.5 against the Bills. I think the Bengals put on a show against the Bills and win by 10, 13. I think they put on a show and they show the NFL that they're back, that they're finally back, and the Bengals go out and win by 10-13 and beat the Bills. And the Bills even more question marks about the Bills begin to arise. That's the Damar Hamlin game. He will be mentioned a lot. That game last year was heartbreaking when Damar Hamlin went down. You didn't know what was going on. But the Bengals go and get the win at home in the jungle. The Bengals minus 2.5. I'd take that all day long. That'll do it for this episode of Uncaged Sports Talk. Thank you for tuning in. It is greatly appreciated if you can like, comment, and share on all of our platforms. Please tune in next week as we will recap Dallas week and might try to have a special guest. If I can I might wind up doing a live episode later this week, hopefully, if I can get my guest. But next week I might talk to one of my teachers that I had in college. We'll see if I can get him. But might try to have a special guest next week, which I'll keep under wraps until I can figure out if he can come on or not next week. But that'll do it for this episode of Uncaged Sports Talk. Make sure to tune in to episode 15 next Thursday.